Hi again. So today I wanted to talk about something that has been really helpful to me to discover even really recently. And it's something called reactive abuse. Um, it's where you're getting abused verbally, emotionally, mentally, physically, whatever it is, and you maybe are with a narcissist or even someone else, and you take it and you take it and you take it and you try to ignore it and you try to excuse it, and maybe you think that this is just what your life is going to be, so you kind of don't want to admit that it's happening. And then of course people can only take that for so long, and so then you snap, and maybe you throw something against the wall, or you scream, or maybe you even raise your fist to hit the narcissist because it's just the absolute most that you could take at that point. And then, of course, the narcissist seizes this opportunity to, use this as proof that you are abusive, you are crazy, so much else is your fault, and everything was already your fault anyway, right? But now this is the proof. Um, so, and again, of course, when the narcissist does something wrong, like one of mine, of course, was severely depressed or suicidal and was an alcoholic. And so whenever she would get extremely verbally or emotionally abusive, there would never be an apology. It would just be like, well, I was so anxious, at the time. Like, that should be the excuse. But of course, for me, if I ever did or said anything that she interpreted as not okay, it was just proof, again, that I was unstable, and I just was so wrong. And she would even say, there's no excuse for this. There's nothing you can say that's going to make this okay. What you did, this thing you did, which usually was just something that I said about something she had did that was completely unacceptable, right? So the thing that I did was calling her out on it, and nothing that I could say about it was going to make it okay. So that's kind of the intro to this reactive abuse thing. And I was just so glad to find an article on it because, in doing all this research on narcissism and on kind of what constitutes emotional abuse, sometimes it's really validating when you find the article that lists, 10 things that explain or signs of emotional abuse. And you're like, yes, yes, yes. Maybe you brushed them off at the time, but you're like, yes, I feel so much better. I know what was going on. And I can label it abuse, and I can sort of feel validated. But when your narcissist is turning all of this over and trying to make it your fault, it's really hard when you read those articles, because sometimes you actually word for word end up reading the descriptions of what your narcissist says about you, right? So of course it's what they're doing to you, but because of the projection, right? Because they end up accusing you of doing what they are in fact doing. Instead, sometimes you read these articles about whatever kind of abuse, and you're like, oh my God, if maybe you haven't spent enough time yet being sort of out of the situation and educating yourself on what's really going on, you might read these articles and say, oh my gosh, the narcissist is right. I do these things. They say these things to me all the time. So that's tricky. Or if you read, even the ones about being abusive, like, for example, a lot of them mention being controlling, or, keeping your partner from their friends as something that's abusive. Of course it is. Probably a lot of us have been accused of doing that by a narcissist because they need to go off and be with their friends, all of the time. And so if we ever bring up something like that, like, ooh, that one friend who's super flirty with you, or who you constantly text in the middle of the night in the bathroom, don't feel so good about that, then it's like, you don't let me have friends. So that's just one example of how narcissists try to make you seem like the emotionally, or the any kind of abusive one. And then, of course, we know that so much that narcissists do is trying to play the victim. So, of course, this is perfect for them. You're abusive. One of mine just was constantly telling me how crushed she was and just so hurt at what I had done. And what I had done, of course, was just call her out on putting zero effort into the relationship, prioritizing everybody and everything under the sun before me, and just kind of saying like, hey, I wish I saw you more, or could we at least have like a couple of date nights a week? No, she could only ever give me one, and I was supposed to just, smile and be ever so grateful that I could see her maybe once a week. And then, of course, she was so crushed that I had been telling her, in her words, that nothing she does is good enough. Over and over and over again, this got said to me, which is so infuriating for so many reasons, because first of all, she wasn't doing anything good, not putting in any effort, but it would be like, well, last Monday I said that you could come over. Okay, that's not effort. That's not you coming to me. That's not you making a plan or doing anything thoughtful. That's like you happened to have a free moment and wanted someone to come over and, replenish your supply, right? Give you compliments or whatever, because I never see you, and so I want it to be good when I do see you. So nothing is ever enough, just over and over again. And that takes away your right to ever express how you're feeling if you're not feeling good, right? It takes away the validity of anything that you might, want to communicate in a normal way with your partner and say, when you do that thing, it hurts me. Nothing I ever do is good enough. Okay, well, you don't do anything anyway. I also was really intrigued by one of my narcissists, again, in trying to make me look abusive verbally, would say, there's only so much I can take. And again, this was in relation to me saying, I don't understand why everyone else is a priority. Your friends get specific nights a week. They get dinner and the entire evening with you. And when I see you, it's always, it's not planned. It's when you happen to have a couple free minutes. I always come to you, things like that. Like, can we have a real thought out evening like other people do? I can only take so much, which again is what the person being abused wants to say. Like, you stole my words from me, and this is so unfair and infuriating. And I can't take these daggers that you're hurling at me, when she was incredibly verbally abusive, and again would never apologize for it because, like, well, she was anxious or she was feeling suicidal that day, so it doesn't matter what she did. And then there were all of these other moments where, again, because we had a day where I was pointing out some things I didn't like that she was doing, she would then, of course, retaliate with the silent treatment, first of all, and with spending, loads of quality time with other people and letting me know it, because that's what I wanted with her. So it was like throwing in my face to punish me, that she's just like having such a great time with her friends, like during a time that we were supposed to hang out, instead giving me the silent treatment, and then also spending, well, who knows, at least making me think that she spent like hours extra with her friends, when like normally after hanging out with them, she would text me at like 7:30, and then she would wait until 11, and then I'd be like, whoa, okay, like, what's going on? And the response would be, well, I really needed my people today because of you, because you made me feel so awful, calling her out on her abusive shit. You made me feel so awful that, I just really needed them. And there was another time where, of course, we were in one of our like 20,000 breakups, and I was like, can we just talk it through? Because, of course, I was the only one ever trying to like actually have a constructive conversation or solve any issues or come to any agreements. So I would say, can we please just talk this through? Like, I really don't want to fight, because she would always accuse me of wanting to fight, when of course that was also always her. Then she would say things like, well, fine, we can meet, but it has to be in a public place because you always get so crazy, right? I blow things out of proportion. I overreact. I'm unstable. Reactive abuse. Also using words like safe space, which is so infuriating, right? Like when the people who are doing the abusing steal the words again of the people who are being abused and use it against them. Again, if you're not well versed in what narcissists do, it can be the biggest mind fuck. And it can just sort of reinforce all of these things that the narcissists are telling you anyway all the time with what they do and say, which is like, you're not good enough. No one else is going to be able to deal with you or want to be around you. So, like, you need to try to get along with me and cater to me because no one else is going to want this. So in relation to the safe space thing, again, this one was in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and we were on, again, another of our 20,000 breakups, and she texted me that she was supposed to be speaking at a meeting that night, and it was an open meeting, like, which I guess means that people who aren't in AA can also go to it. So she was like, I promised I would tell you when I was speaking. I mean, I don't care now because we're broken up. Why are you telling me this, right? But like, oh, try to look like a good person. I'm keeping my promise. I told you that I was speaking, but actually, now I'm going to rip that away from you because I don't want you to come. Or she said, you can show up, but I don't want to talk to you at the meeting because I don't feel safe around you. Like, I don't want you to be in my safe space. And it was another time where she had done something completely infuriating. She was texting her ex in my car when I picked her up from the airport, and I saw it, and I was like, I drove her home anyway, completely silently, drove her home, and then we got there, and she knew I was really angry, and she refused to get out of my car again and again. And so I finally got out, and I picked up her stuff calmly from the back seat, but I firmly said, get out of my car. And that made me scary, right? So that turned me into, someone who just couldn't even be near AA. Okay. There's also something that happens so often. I mean, it's gaslighting, right? Where something would happen, and then later she would twist it. And it has something to do with, like, the intention behind what I was doing. Like, you were trying to do this, or you were saying this thing about me, or you think this thing about me. So it's something that it's hard to prove, right? Like, I clearly don't think that at all. It's something that, like, I would never judge you for, like, maybe the type of job that you have or something. Like, I would never judge anyone for that. But, you think this about me. Well, no, I don't. And then she would turn it into, you're telling me how I feel, right? If she says, well, I feel like you, that's not how she talks. She tells you what you think. And then when you say, no, that's not what I think, or that's not what I was trying to do, then she says, you're taking away my feelings. You're not letting me feel. You're not letting me exist is my favorite one. And then she would turn it on you and say that, I'm telling her how she feels, which is emotionally abusive, right? Again, like, that's what you do to me all the time. I'm not allowed to feel. In fact, one time she told me that I should just cry it out and not tell her anything. Like, she accused me of not having a filter because I wanted to express a way that I had been hurt by her. And that was, of course not acceptable because they don't give a shit when you're hurt at all. So anyway, but when she has a feeling, which is about something that's not the truth of what I did, if I say, no, that's not what was going on, that's emotionally abusive. Sure. Okay. So I hope that this video maybe gives people some perspective on narcissists, even if sometimes we do slip up and get super angry and do something that's, like, yeah, maybe not so great and, like, not acceptable in a situation where you're not being abused. It does kind of make sense that we would snap at these people who are constantly abusing us and drilling, like, terrible things into our brains. As my narcissist would say, there's only so much a person can take, right? Stole my words again. And the other thing is, again, even if we do react in a not so great way, it almost never has the effect on the narcissist as it does on the person who's actually being abused, right? Like it is almost nearly never nearly as damaging, and in fact, it is probably exactly what the narcissist wants. Again, to prove that you're crazy, to be able to gaslight you further because you're unreliable. You lose it so quickly, like you don't remember what I did or said. You don't remember what you said, so now I'm gonna say that you were being abusive, things like that. So again, I just hope this was a little bit of food for thought. It really helped me to think of things in this way and to sort of, gather my feelings again and feel validated. So if you have any examples of things that your narcissist said to you, accusing you of various types of abuse, let us know below. We can start a collection of crazy things our narcissists have told us, and hopefully collectively feel better. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.